Welcome back to the channel. It's me. And today going to be reading from a horror anthology called The Modern Ghoul by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the story titled, My Friend Wasn't Human Anymore. Let's begin. So maybe that's why I never liked him being friends with someone like me. He knew better. My dad always said he had something special, that the blood in his veins was firewater. He was half Cheyenne and proud of it, even if the only thing separating us from the reservation was into the high school parking lot, where we made this pact. They say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. And my mom was just staring at him from the other room. She must have been wondering who this random soldier was talking to her son. It felt good to have a friend again. Besides, I had no idea that Zane was plotting something big. He would come over and stay with me for a few days at a time, sleeping in the basement. I went downstairs and found Zane kneeling beside my bed, pulling clothes out of the hamper. I thought maybe he had left. But then I noticed that the window beside his bed was open, and there was a big gash in the screen. Looking closer, I saw that the hole in the screen had been torn from the inside, which meant Zane hadn't left. He had climbed out of the window. I was terrified. I wanted to call the cops, but then I heard voices. The window was open, but there was no sign of him anywhere. I searched the entire house, but I couldn't find anything. Then I went downstairs to get some breakfast. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw that he had left me a note. Whatever had taken him wasn't human, and it wasn't done with me yet. It said, "Sorry, man. I had to do what I had to do." I didn't know what he meant by that, but I could tell he was in trouble. They were his clothes. He had a big pile of them in his arms. And when he saw me, he asked me for a lighter. They just wrote everything down and then let me go. But I wasn't done looking for my friend. I went out into the woods behind our neighborhood and started searching, but I couldn't find any sign of him. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like they were singing or chanting. And as I did, I turned back to look and saw the creepiest thing. It was Zane. He was standing there watching me, but he didn't look like Zane anymore. He was naked, except for the necklace my dad had said he was so proud of. And with each step he took, he got closer and closer. Then the voices stopped, and I saw Zane, standing in the middle of my room. He was covered in mud, and his eyes were wide open. When he spoke, his voice sounded like gravel. "I'll see you guys next time." "You shouldn't be down here," he said. I remember feeling my heart sink. Something was definitely wrong with him. I knew in that moment that my dad was right. Zane's blood wasn't water, it was fire. And suddenly that fire was spreading to me. "What are you doing?" I asked. But he just smiled mysteriously and disappeared back into his room. And I could hear him down there moving around late at night. Sometimes I'd go down there to check on him and make sure he had everything he needed. But most nights I'd hear him muttering to himself and then he'd go silent. I could hear Zane moving around and screaming, but I didn't care. I was too scared. As I ran to my room, I tripped over my bed and fell to the floor. But I didn't feel any pain. I was too focused on what was happening outside the door. I could hear heavy footsteps getting closer and closer. And when they stopped, I knew whatever was out there was waiting for me to come out. So I went with Zane into the backyard, and he began explaining that he was stationed nearby and wanted to reconnect. I don't know why I chose that place, but I remember crawling inside and hiding between my clothes. I don't know how long I stayed in there, but eventually the sounds in the hallway slowly faded away. He told me all about how he traveled the world, saw combat, and killed people. I was sitting on the grass listening to him, not really responding much because I felt like a little kid again. He was still the same goofy dude I grew up with, just more violent and broken somehow. We were best friends, me and Zane, all through elementary school, junior high, even through most of high school. It was a pendant with an eagle holding a snake in its mouth. "Here, I brought you this," he said. "It's cool. Used to have these when we were kids. Remember?" I didn't respond right away. I was thinking about what my dad had always told me about Zane. His blood was firewater. Maybe it wasn't safe for me to be around him. But Zane kept telling me stories about the army, and soon enough, I forgot all about my dad's warning. I was furious because not only was I going to get suspended, but now Zane was mad at me. I ended up having to apologize to Mr. Williams and write an essay about bullying before I got reinstated. But Zane just acted like nothing happened between us. They sounded like whispers at first, but then they started sounding like screams. I remember shoving my blankets under the door just in case. One time I think I actually heard footsteps coming up the basement stairs. But whenever I went to check, everything was fine. I tried to bring it up with Zane, but he would just laugh it off. That was until he did what he did. When he betrayed me after he graduated high school, he joined the army, and that was the end of that. I never thought I'd see him again. But one day, about 3 years later, he showed up at my house, unannounced. I remember it was summer, and my dad was out drinking with his buddies, so it was just me and my mom at home. When Zane walked in, he was wearing his army fatigues. And even though he looked older and tougher, I could tell he was still skin and bones. And even though he was 20 years old, he still looked like the scrawny kid that used to sit behind me in math class, and got me suspended for making fun of Mr. Williams. We both knew that the guy was gay. Everyone did. But one day he actually came out to the whole school over the intercom, which just gave us more ammo. Of course, the next day at school, we heard all the gossip about his announcement. And while we were eating lunch, Zane leaned over to me and yelled, "Hey, listen up." Then he started imitating Mr. Williams' voice and saying things like, "Good morning, boys and girls. It's so great to wake up every day and know that I am loved by my partner and my students." It was pretty funny. But then Zane turned to me and said, "Hey, you're going to say that again." And I did. And then Mr. Williams came over and sent us both to the principal's office. When we got suspended, Zane said, "I can't believe you ratted me out. You could have just let me finish." It was after that incident that I realized he wasn't my friend anymore. "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. I remember feeling really uncomfortable. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a necklace and dangled it in front of me. The days that followed, Zane and I spent a lot of time together, just hanging out, smoking weed, and driving around. And sometimes during the day, I'd be in my room and I could hear voices coming from my basement. One evening, I was just relaxing in my room, playing video games when I heard footsteps again. The following morning, I woke up early for school and decided to check on Zane. But when I opened his door, his bed was empty. I remember standing there paralyzed with fear and hearing the voices get louder. I raced upstairs and slammed the door behind me, locking it. That's when I noticed that the closet door was open. The next morning I woke up and immediately checked on Zane. He was gone. So I went to the police station and filed a missing persons report. The cops didn't seem to care, though. That's when I heard a noise in the trees. I remember jumping and running away. And that's when I finally realized he wasn't human anymore. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also check out the playlist for more horror anthologies.